This is the Skeptic Squared podcast.
A safe place to make light of sacred things.
My name is Matt.
And I'm Corinne.
And in this program, we will be discussing current events related to religion, atheism, and skepticism. Our goal is not to insult believers,
Although that will probably happen from time to time.
but rather to share our point of view on these topics in a way which will benefit and entertain others.
Or maybe we just want to stroke our own egos. You decide.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Squared podcast. Today is February 8th, 2016, and with me is my vivacious wife, Corinne. How are you doing?
Sickly wife. We're both a little under the weather, so if we sound weird,
Yeah,
it's
might sound a little
due
raspy.
to a cold that we are both getting over.
Which apparently is all over the place in Utah right now.
Yeah.
Like a ton of people at my work have spouses or family members that have been sick, and apparently there's a bunch of people in Salt Lake as well.
It swept through my work as well.
Did it?
Yeah.
So that's fun. Keeping God's country healthy.
No one's praying hard enough.
Yeah, pray harder, people. So today we have a few different topics that we want to go over. But to start with, I thought we'd start a little bit light. Are you familiar, Corinne, with internet memes?
Yes.
Yes?
If you're not familiar with internet memes, you've never been on the internet.
Well, I just, you know how I like to keep up on all the new age youth stuff that all the youngins are doing.
'Cause you're so old.
Yeah. So I put myself through a little bit of a masochistic spell, trying to find Mormon-themed memes.
I should have asked my brother for that link.
Yeah,
Forgot
like
about that.
For some memes.
Yeah, he has it on Instagram or something.
Oh, Daniel?
Chris.
Chris?
He just looks him up all the time.
Right, so for those who don't know, a meme is basically just a picture with some kind of clever little saying or something on it, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure most people know what
Yeah,
it is.
why are you describing it? This isn't a different language. This is worldwide.
I'm just saying. Some people don't know. There was a point in time when I didn't know what a meme was. So
How long ago was that? When they were first catching steam?
probably.
Exactly. This is everyday life. You can't look on Facebook without finding a meme.
Right. So I found a bunch of Mormon memes. I thought it would be kind of fun to go through some of them because these are the sorts of things that Mormons share with other Mormons as like a wink and a nod, sort of an inside joke for people that know about Mormon culture and Mormon beliefs and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one that I have is actually one that I posted on Facebook like a week or so ago. It's a picture of two Mormon missionaries, very clean cut, and it's and the caption says, "Mormons, they have to clean your yard if you ask them to." The idea being that Mormon missionaries are encouraged to do service-oriented activities to kind of gain relationships with people in the community, and it's a good way to meet new people that might be interested in joining the church and that kind of stuff. And and some people have caught on to this, some non-Mormon people have caught on to this, and use that as a way of getting free labor.
Yeah, I think it was on Dogma Debate that they talked about that. It's like if you don't want to let the missionaries in, that's fine. You don't need to have a conversation with them, but ask them to come back and mow your lawn.
Oh, yeah.
Like, use their labor services because it's free, and they'll do it.
They have to do it, actually. Well, they don't necessarily have to do everything that they're asked.
Right.
But most missions require that the missionaries have a certain number of service hours every week.
Yeah.
And so...
You totally missed that straw.
We're going to record like an hour and a half and get like 15 minutes of actual footage.
Okay, just go. How many memes do you have?
I don't know. I just go through them. So, I don't even remember what I was saying.
We were just talking about they have a certain number of service hours they have to get a week. And that's why they do most service.
Yeah, I just don't remember the last sentence I said before I got cut off.
It doesn't matter. Move on.
Okay. Creative editing. The next one is a picture of Richard G. Scott. Do you remember who that was?
Yeah. He's still alive.
Oh, he's still
Isn't
alive.
he?
I thought he was one of the ones that died over the summer. Wasn't he?
Oh, he was.
Okay. Anyway, so it's a picture of him from like General Conference, and it has a quote from him. Let's see. So, to exercise faith is to trust that the Lord knows what He is doing for you, for your eternal good, even though you cannot understand how He can possibly do it. When you pass through trials, as you trust Him, He will help you. That support will generally come step by step, a portion at a time. Your Father in heaven and His beloved Son love you perfectly, which is, I don't even know what that means. They would not require you to experience a moment more of difficulty than is absolutely needed for your personal benefit.
Load of crap. It's not really a funny meme, though.
It's not. It's just a funny idea because it's just so ridiculous when you actually apply it to real situations like, well, I mean, take an extreme example like Elizabeth Freitzel, right, who was kept in a dungeon for 24 years and raped repeatedly by her father.
Yeah,
like
what personal gain did she really get from that?
Yeah, like a truly horrific event, or, you know, something like a Holocaust,
right,
or genocide, or, you know, those sorts of things.
Just living in constant poverty.
Yeah, like the fact that there are 5 million children under the age of 5 who die of starvation every year. You know. Yeah. Like what could they possibly get? What personal benefit could they get from all of that suffering? Anyway, moving on. I think I'll skip that one. Oh, here's a good one. So one of the films that the Mormon culture has really latched onto over the years was The Princess Bride. Okay, every Mormon in Mormon culture, or like I guess more just a Utah thing, but like people in my ward in Seattle, like growing up, like we had a lot of people that were really big fans of it, but they could quote it like line by line, the entire movie. Anyway, so there's the one scene right before. I can't remember, Wesley, and then Inigo Montoya, and then Andre the Giant's character, Fezzik, are about, they're talking about their plans to like raid the castle, right? And there's the funny line where Wesley's like, what's your plan, or what happened, or something like that, and Inigo Montoya is like, well, let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. Okay. So that's the scene in this meme. Okay. It's headshots.
When they're like sitting against the wall?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's them sitting against the wall, they're having that conversation, and Wesley says, what do Mormons believe? And Inigo Montoya says, let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. And he holds up the Articles of Faith.
Oh, the Articles of Faith. Do you have them memorized still?
I never bothered to really memorize them. I did like probably the first 5 or 6 or something like that. My brother Jason, he memorized them. I remember that.
Yeah. Well, it's almost a requirement, like before you get baptized. Like you're supposed to go in and you have the interview with the bishop, and then you're supposed to like rattle off these Articles of Faith. But yeah, I never had all of them memorized.
I think in my ward, it wasn't a requirement. I mean, obviously, they're not going to stop an 8-year-old from getting baptized if they
right, exactly.
It. But I think they had some kind of prize. Like, if you do it before your baptism, then you get like a root beer float or something, or something along those lines. Yeah.
Did you ever have to sing the Article of Faith songs?
I have a vague recollection. I cannot remember any of them.
Oh, they're awful.
Yeah. No, when I was doing all that stuff for like rewriting the primary songs. Yeah. Which we really haven't been using in the last few episodes, but you know, the earlier episodes we used a lot of the stuff that I wrote. Like I noticed them, and it was just the melodies were just so bland.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And trying to fit those words into the songs, like,
Yeah, so forced.
it's really hard. Especially, it's really funny listening to kids younger than 8 try and sing them too.
Yeah.
It's just the teachers.
Yeah.
But sorry, that's a little off topic.
Okay, so here's another one from a movie. This is from, I think it's the first Avengers movie.
Okay.
You have Loki, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Iron Man,
Mm-hmm.
one of your favorites.
Yep.
And they have that scene towards the end where Loki's rattling off all the things that he's got on his side.
Uh-huh.
And then Iron Man says, well, we have a Hulk, right? Okay, so it's that scene. Okay, headshots of them in that scene.
Of course.
And Loki says, I have an army. Okay. And Iron Man says, we have Elder Holland.
Oh my god. That makes me so upset.
Why would that make you upset?
Words like that would never come out of Robert Downey Jr.'s mouth. And Holland is an infuriating man. Yeah.
He's one of the more intense apostles.
Very impassioned.
Yeah, it like his whole
He
shtick.
cries a lot.
Yeah, his whole shtick is that he gets up in front of General Conference, which is broadcast to millions of Mormons twice a year, and he just cries about how awesome Mormonism is and how great the Book of Mormon is, and how could anybody not believe that it's a historical document?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah. Let's see. So here's a fun one. It's good. It's not the prettiest meme. Okay. The top half is a close-up shot of some hot sauce from Taco Bell. Okay.
I love that hot sauce, by the way.
Well, you know how they have the little sayings?
Yeah, on the packets.
Yeah. Okay, so the saying on the hot sauce, good things always happen after midnight. Okay? You're already laughing because you know exactly where this is going. Okay, so below that is a picture of Dwight Schrute from The Office. Okay? And he says, false. The Holy Ghost goes to bed at midnight. Which is a common saying in BYU culture because they have the curfew. They have a curfew for grown adults to be in their apartments at a particular time.
Yep.
Yeah, how is that?
Or at least to not be in the
demeaning?
opposite sex's apartment at a particular time.
At BYU, Idaho, I think you have to actually be in your apartment.
Oh, I don't think it's that way at BYU anymore. The regular one. I don't know. They're
remember.
my apartment complex might have been a little more lenient, but
Maybe.
people weren't that worried about it unless there was
It was
another
too
guy
long ago.
present.
Yeah, it was too long ago. I can't really remember.
I guess I didn't really go to BYU, so I didn't care, but...
Right. What are they going to do? Kick you out of school?
Right.
Okay, so here's a fun one. This is from, was it The Dark Knight? One of the Batman movies. It's got Harvey Dent, who's played by Aaron Eckhart, who actually is an ex-Mormon.
Yep, I know, and Mormons love to talk about it.
Yeah. Well,
They like to forget that he's an ex-Mormon.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though he's made public statements saying that he doesn't identify as Mormon anymore and kind of feels silly being.
Yeah, there are a few. Ryan Gosling
that
is a former Mormon.
Oh yeah, I heard about
Amy
that. Yeah.
Adams is a former Mormon.
Allegedly, Alice Cooper is a former Mormon.
That's fantastic.
And this is a rumor. I don't know if this actually happened, but I remember in high school hearing a rumor from some of my, people, some friends of mine that would go to like rock concerts and that kind of stuff. So they were in the scene, so to speak. Apparently, he at some point went on tour and had a pair of tie-dyed temple garments that he would either wear on stage and prance around in or lit on fire or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the rumor was. Which, if that's true, props to Alice
That
Cooper.
is so funny.
That's amazing to me.
That's funny.
So anyway, so this meme has a picture of Harvey Dent, and he says, so it's basically just a tweak from one of the quotes from the movie. When you're the last speaker in sacrament meeting, okay, you either close a hero or speak long enough to see yourself become the villain. Which, of course, is, yeah. Sacrament meeting is the general congregation meeting when Mormons just get together and are preached at by other Mormons.
Yeah. In my home ward, if you were scheduled to be the last speaker, quite often you didn't get time to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And still the bishop would get up and have to say something.
Of course, because that's what the bishop does.
My dad was awful at that.
Would he always go over?
Always.
Well, did you guys have sacrament last or first?
Last.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah.
See, we usually had sacrament meeting first, so it just spilled into the time for Sunday school, so it wasn't even that big of a deal, you know.
Right.
But when it's last, that means you are adding on to the already 3-hour block.
Yep. I'm pretty sure they've changed it now. Within the last year or two, I think they switched it. But yeah, when I was in California, sacrament meeting was always first, and then we moved here, and it was last, and it was the weirdest thing.
It's awful.
It is, because it's so loud. No one is paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't
And
imagine.
it goes over every time.
Yeah.
My dad also loved to sing all of the verses of the songs,
Oh, really?
even the ones at the very bottom of the page.
So, like, when you do, like, if you could hide to Kolob, you do all 9 verses.
Yeah. Luckily, that one wasn't a very popular song.
Okay. Okay, so do you know what the Liahona is?
Are we talking in the Book of Mormon
Yes.
The compass?
Yes. So the Liahona is this magic compass, essentially a ball with
It's a
couple of
director.
spindles. Yeah, some spindles in it that the characters in the Book of Mormon find at one point, and they use it to go to the Promised Land. So as long as they are, quote, righteous, the spindles on the ball will point towards the Promised Land, and they'll know where to go. Okay, which is kind of funny when you really think about it, because if it's going to the Promised Land, okay, then it should be the same direction every day. So even if they are not entirely righteous one day and it starts spinning all over the place,
That's so
they
funny.
still know you just kind of go east. You
I
know?
never thought about that.
You know.
Yeah. It's like they're traveling through deserts and stuff. It's just a vast expanse of...
Right.
They're not...
Yeah. So essentially, it's a compass.
Yeah.
So the meme says, Mormons using GPS before it was cool, with a picture of the Liahona.
Too bad they can't prove that.
Yeah. So here's another one. So a lot of churches have marquees, right, where they put up like the time that they have worship services, or they might have like a cool saying or a scripture or something, trying to encourage people to come to their church.
Right.
So there's been a series of memes where people basically put their own words onto marquees and then post it. Okay, like there's actually websites that you can go to do that. Okay, and I'm fairly certain that's what this person did, because I'm certain I've seen this marquee and this First Baptist Church sign before on other memes. Anyway, so what they put on it. Again, this is supposed to be coming from a Baptist church. Don't pray about the Book of Mormon. That's how they get you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're so full of themselves.
I know. We've talked about that whole concept before.
Multiple times.
Yeah. So we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. Here's a fun one. So this is one of those e-card things where you have like the pastel color and then some black and white sketch of people doing some inane thing, right?
Yeah, like
And then-
50s style.
Right. So it's one of those, and it says, how many times do I have to tell you? You can't deduct feeding the missionaries from your tithing.
What? Is that a thing?
I don't think it's actually a thing. It's supposed to be a joke, where like,
Well, these things are supposed to be funny because they're true.
well, maybe people have tried that. Maybe somebody has actually tried to say, like, I shouldn't pay this much in tithing because I gave this much to the missionaries in food, and that should count as part of my tithing.
That is so weird.
Yeah. Anyway, doesn't count. Doesn't count towards your 10%.
We should probably just do one or two more.
Yeah. Let's skip that one. I'll just piss you off because it's Obi-Wan Kenobi saying something.
No, do it.
You really want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember back when they changed the age requirements for missionaries, in particular girls, from 21 down to 19. Okay, big deal.
This is a big
bunch of young Mormon girls wanted to go on a mission all of a sudden. Okay, and they got a huge influx. Okay, so this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, the original from like New Hope.
Okay.
Okay, I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror because their girlfriends are going on missions. I fear something wonderful has happened.
It was good until that part.
Yeah. Not really much to say about that one. And then I think we'll end with. I got two more I want to do.
Okay.
Okay. So this next one is a picture of just two ladies. It's an old photo, like from like the 1800s, like an early photo. Just two people.
They're not smiling, are they?
No.
Okay.
It says, "Yo mama so Mormon.
Oh, yeah.
She thinks going to the tea party is against the word of wisdom." Which is along the lines of like some Mormons. I think it was it your mom, you said, wouldn't call coffee cake. She called it like
breakfast cake.
Yeah, breakfast cake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like any reference to anything that Mormons aren't supposed to have, they try to take it out.
Yeah.
You know, like
Coffee table
is another one.
Yep.
And then the last one, the top half of this meme is a picture of some pills, just a generic picture of pills spilled over. Okay. It says, "What they want to prescribe you for anxiety,"
Oh my
meaning
gosh.
antidepressant pills.
Right.
Okay. The bottom half is a picture of clasped hands in prayer
What a bunch of bullcrap.
over some scriptures.
Oh
And
my
it
gosh.
says, "What you really need
That's
to cure
infuriating.
anxiety." Isn't that just awful?
That is awful. Because
Yeah.
Mormons have a really high percentage of antidepressants.
Yeah, it's a huge. Well, I don't know if it would necessarily classify as an epidemic, but it is definitely a
pretty
serious
common.
problem here compared to a lot of other areas.
Yep.
At least that's what I've read in different places. Anyway, so that's the memes that I got. So let's shift gears into a more serious topic. So we all know that the Catholic Church, for a number of years, has been accused of abusing children, and not only
covering it up.
Yeah, and not only abusing children, but actively moving priests that have been accused of abusing children to different parishes so that they won't see any criminal proceedings. They won't be taken to prison or anything like that. And there have been documents that have come out that have shown that people as high as Pope Benedict, the previous pope, may have been involved in moving people around, knowing that they were pedophiles and abusing children. Okay, and in fact, I have an article of a priest from St. Louis, where he basically says, and this is like an archbishop who was over a large area in St. Louis.
Okay.
He was in charge, and he was moving people around allegedly, and he knew about people abusing children, and he's being charged with that kind of stuff, and might be facing some prison time. A man, let's see if I can find his name, Archbishop Robert Carlson is his name, and in his proceedings, okay, where he's giving his testimony, he basically says, well, here's a quote. He says, "I'm not sure whether I knew it was a crime or not. I understand today it's a crime." Okay, and then after a series of repeated attempts for him to admit that he was aware of this stuff going on during the 1980s and mid-90s when he was in charge of this area, he just kept saying, I don't remember. I don't remember having that conversation. I don't remember talking to that individual. And it's just this huge, he's just denying the whole thing.
Right.
And it's just awful. And this is the pattern that's been going on. Yesterday, you and I, Corinne, went and saw the movie Spotlight.
Yes. 2 days ago.
Was it 2 days? Yeah, 2 days ago. That's right. We're recording late.
Yeah.
And that movie exposes, I guess it more just shows the process through which investigative journalists discovered that there was this trend.
Right. It's kind of what catapulted it.
Right, and put it into
mainstream.
Anyway, so...
It's a good movie. Go see it if you haven't.
No, it is a good movie. But it shows that, on the one hand, you have an institution that's actively... it seems to have a vested interest in protecting the pedophiles because keeping them in circulation as priests means that they are still working for the church. It's still, increasing their numbers of priests, and they can do more stuff.
And they're just protecting themselves too.
And,
if you let that priest go, they no longer have any hold over that priest. That priest can do whatever he wants, say whatever he wants against the church too. I think it's more a vested interest in protecting their own interests. It's not.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They can get priests pretty easily, I feel like.
Yeah, but there are some statistics that try to put a number on how many priests are actually pedophiles or child molesters. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's startling. Like the number, like any time you see that there are these patterns of abuse in an institution like this, and then the shuffling around and all that stuff, like it's an obvious problem. There has to be some kind of recourse. And from what I recall, back when this was becoming a big topic, like 10, 15 years ago, President George W. Bush, do you remember this?
Probably not.
He gave the Pope diplomatic immunity and said that in the United States, he would not be arrested.
I vaguely remember that. I don't think I knew what it was connected to, though.
Yeah. Which just shows this unfair deference to the institution. Okay, this is an institution which has actively been harming children and covering it up for who knows how long.
And they have proof.
Okay, and they get immunity from indictment because they are in charge of a world religion. Okay, so that's like, and that's that's the Catholic Church. Okay, I don't know a whole lot about Catholicism in general or what their beliefs are. Everything that I've learned has been through the eyes of Mormonism, which has a very low opinion of Catholics.
They are the whore of the earth.
Yes, which is what the Book of Mormon teaches.
Yeah.
They do not like the Catholic Church.
Nope.
But now there's become this increased movement for members of the Mormon Church to speak out about abuse that's been going on within Mormonism. And this is, but it's come in response to a statement that was issued by the Mormon Church, by their PR department, the Mormon newsroom or whatever. They issued this a couple weeks ago, I think it was. And it's caused a bit of a stir because they have essentially said that they are, like their policies that they have in place for dealing with child abuse are what they call the gold standard. Everybody should be doing this as like preventative measures to reduce child abuse. Okay, so you actually have the statement, don't you, Corinne?
Yes. So
Maybe
first, just to clarify when this was actually published. So this was actually published in 2010.
Okay.
But because of some like technical error on the website, Mormon Newsroom or whatever, a bunch of like random articles have been like showing up as like current dates. So this was like dredged up from the archives and showing that it had been published on February 1st, and that's why it suddenly got this huge resurgence. So it was actually published like 6 years ago. But yeah, we should still talk about it.
Okay. So what does it say?
Well, basically, The thing that most people, I think, are upset about is that the church says that their approach to identifying and preventing sexual abuse, or just, I think it's supposed to be child abuse in general, is the gold standard. Their approach is the gold standard.
Right. This is the best of the best.
Yeah. So they compare themselves to other religious institutions and say that they are doing the most to prevent. They're, it's just, yeah.
So do we want to just read through some stuff?
Yeah,
I've
I've got a bunch of highlighted stuff that I think we should talk about.
Okay, let's do it.
So just even in the first paragraph, they say that the church has long had a highly effective approach for preventing and responding to abuse. And then this is where they say that they have the gold standard. Then they go on to say that the church has repeatedly, publicly, and unequivocally denounced child abuse as an insidious evil and a sin of the darkest hue.
There is some truth to that. They have spoken out about it.
Right.
And there
that's
are a couple
fine.
of verses in the Book of Mormon that talk about it or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's not really what
that's not the issue.
Yeah, that's not the issue.
No, the issue is doing something to prevent the abuse.
Right, like, is their policy actually the best way of preventing abuse?
Because even in the movie Spotlight, I'm pretty sure they had said the Catholic Church said something similar. It's like, we don't condone sexual or child abuse. But it's like, not condoning it and actually doing something to prevent it are two completely different things.
Right, because, and this is one of the things that comes up in the movie, and this is something that I've heard people criticize this policy about, is that the churches are their interests is in saving their own assets.
Yeah.
Okay, it's about minimizing the harm to their organization. Mm-hmm. So when somebody says that a priest molested them, or that a bishop molested them, or that the bishop knew that somebody was molesting them, which is more often the case, and then did nothing, there was a potential lawsuit there. And there are laws in place. Each state is a little bit different.
They go into that.
Do they?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so each state is a little bit different. Some states, including Utah, which is Mormon-run, basically, do not require clergy members to report abuse if it's given in a confessional-type setting, which to me is just ludicrous.
Right.
You know, and they, from the statements that I've heard, and perhaps they go into this in the statement, the idea behind that is that they think that they will get more kids to come out and talk about the abuse.
If it's confidential.
If it's confidential, so there's no risk of, like, say, their abusive father going to prison, or that their family's going to get a divorce, get split up. You know, if that isn't going to happen, then they're more likely to come forward. And that's an interesting rationale. However, as has been pointed out by many, many people, it's a lot of pressure on the kid. Okay? It shouldn't be on the kid to make that decision. Mm-hmm. And regardless, the clergy members, at least right now, are the only ones that don't have to report it. A teacher has to report it. A psychiatrist or a psychologist, a therapist, like, they all have to report it. Mm-hmm. You know, if you know of abuse that's going on, you have a moral obligation to report it. Clergy members don't. Mm-hmm. And that is problematic, you know. Mm-hmm.
We can talk about that more later.
Okay.
Because you're jumping ahead here.
Sorry.
So the church, in this article, they specifically say that since 1976, more than 50 articles have appeared in church publications condemning child abuse or educating members about it. Church leaders have given sermons about it more than 30 times at the church's worldwide conferences.
Okay.
I find the numbers kind of laughable.
Well, they seem inflated.
I think it should be a lot more. Since 1976, only 50 articles in church publications. That's not even one a year.
Well, I guess that's true.
You know? 30 times at a church worldwide conference. Mm-hmm. And those articles, like, those are going to be in publications that people don't even read anymore unless they're specifically looking for that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, is that they seem to be counting like people just saying something like nonchalant or just kind of as an aside, don't abuse your kids, or abusing kids is terrible.
Right. Or they're just taking
not the focus of the talk that they're giving.
Right. They focus on love, loving a family, building a strong family unit, and I feel like they're using that as saying don't abuse your child without actually saying don't abuse your child.
Yeah.
Because they even, after they talk about the 30 times, they also say preventing and responding to child abuse is the subject of a regular lesson taught during Sunday meetings. Mm-hmm. And all of your experience, every Sunday that you went to church, can you recall any specific meeting, lesson, discussion about child abuse?
I was actually trying to think of this earlier, and I do recall when I was in primary, so when I was a little kid, we had a lesson where one of the women in the congregation came up and pulled out one of those little charts with like a felt doll on a poster board thing, and had like a swimsuit on it, right? And had like a little stick that said like, if somebody touches you here, it's okay. If somebody touches you here, it's okay. If they touch you here or here, then tell an adult, tell your parents, that kind of thing. But that's the only thing I can remember.
I never had anything like that.
Yeah.
Ever. There's never been anything over the pulpit that I can remember. Never been any Sunday school lesson, no primary lesson, nothing. The way they phrase that makes it sound like regularly, like every month there's a course or like a lesson that you have on recognizing child abuse and how to prevent it or how to approach someone, but they don't.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is just a recent thought that I had, I think what they're equating this to is having lessons on sexual purity and chastity and how to avoid things like pornography. I think, I really think that's what they are, because those I had all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't count on two hands how many times I had a lesson regarding, sexual purity and stuff like that, and having immoral thoughts and how that can lead you down a bad road. And I think that's the idea.
Maybe
that's where that's coming from.
But even if we grant them that they have been doing all of this stuff, that doesn't mean that the rest of their policies are okay, or that they reduce, or that they handle the cases that they do find in an appropriate way. And that's what people are criticizing them for.
Yeah.
The way that they handle the cases that they know about.
Right.
I mean, it is important to educate people about the signs and what victimology means and how a child can be groomed without you necessarily seeing it on the surface that they're being groomed by a predator, and that kind of stuff is important. And and that's something that I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about at church, because that's pretty heavy stuff. But even if they were doing all of that, the fact that clergy members aren't required to talk to law officials and report it, that to me, I mean, that's the bigger issue, because it can still go unpunished.
Right.
And just because somebody says, okay, this is what I did and I'm not going to do it anymore, that doesn't mean that this issue is resolved,
Right. So I went on LDS.org because I wanted to see if I could find a lesson or something in a manual, like maybe it was just something that I missed on a Sunday or something, but I couldn't find any specific lesson. There are some articles in the Ensign, random things like that. There's a bunch in the Liahona, but most of them were published before the 2000s, so it's not something that's consistently being talked about. And a lot of the hits were about chastity. So I don't know what lessons they're talking about.
It's a different topic.
It is a different topic. Yeah.
Because if somebody is abused, even sexually, that doesn't make them unchaste.
Right.
Even by Mormon standards. At least it shouldn't.
It's not. I did find in there, they specifically say if you've been a victim of sexual abuse, you need to know that it's not your fault. You're still sexually pure. Things like that. They're trying to reassure them that, you have no reason to feel guilty. Yeah. But from the comments that I've read, from Mormon Stories where I found this link, and from comments after these, it's guilt is still a huge thing. They don't do a good job of saying it's okay if it happens to you.
Yeah.
You know, you are still clean, because most of those people didn't feel clean. They felt dirty, they felt gross, they didn't feel like they could talk to anyone about it.
And even worse, if there is a consequence for, say, their abusive father having to go to prison, or the family breaking up, they tend to blame themselves. It's like,
And not even just that, people in their family will blame them too,
Yeah.
because quite often people in their family are aware of what's going on.
Yeah, it's like they only, like, the family broke up because you spoke up.
Yeah. It's like,
You
you
know.
couldn't keep your mouth quiet. We could have worked through this. But anyway, we can talk about some of that a little bit later too. So the next paragraph starts talking about bishops specifically, and the kind of the process of them being called bishops. But the opening line to this paragraph is, while clergy abuse cases continue to grab headlines, the church has had almost no child abuse problems with its clergy, which I think is a blatant lie.
That can't possibly be the
No,
case.
especially from just the handful of comments that I read. Like,
Yeah.
it is a problem. While it might not be as prevalent as the Catholic Church, it doesn't minimize the problem at all.
Yeah.
It's like, it's still a huge issue.
Yeah, and it should be noted that one of the reasons why it's probably more prevalent in the Catholic Church
Just because they're celibate.
is because they're celibate.
Yeah.
And that's a level of sexual repression that not even Mormons can really, wrap their heads around.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're a gay
You're
Mormon,
homosexual, yeah.
then you know all about that.
Exactly. Yeah. So they talk about how bishops are selected from local membership, and how basically everyone already is familiar with this bishop, and this familiarity isn't going to breed, abuse cases. Does that make sense?
Kinda.
So,
Can you elaborate?
Well, I'll just read the sentence. Most have lived in the community and attended their congregations for many years, and thus are well known to church members before they are selected. And I think that's just
they're talking
implying
about
that
the
because
vetting process.
Well, yeah, but I think they're also implying with that since the bishop knows everyone and everyone knows the bishop, like they're implying that a lot of abuse is going to happen from someone you don't know, I think.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Which is completely wrong.
It is completely wrong. And in this article, that's more or less kind of how it comes across. But in some of the things I found on LDS.org, they do mention that it could be family members, it could be, neighbors, people that you know. But in this article specifically, it doesn't say anything like that. They're just trying to cover their tracks. They're trying to get rid of any blame that could possibly be laid at their feet.
Well, I mean, okay, so as I've mentioned many times already on other episodes, I work at a treatment center.
Right.
And most of the people that I work with, patients, are teenage girls who have been abused.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them sexually assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Most of those girls that have been sexually abused that I work with were abused by people in their own family, usually a parent. And most often it's the father, or like a stepfather or something like that. But it's not exclusive.
Right.
But yeah, this whole idea that it's this scary stranger danger kind of idea, that's what you need to watch out for, is completely false. Like, most people who prey on children are very subtle. They have a particular grooming process that is really difficult to detect. Yeah, and that's the sort of thing that they should be focused on if they really want to make a difference, is being able to see the signs and knowing that it's probably going to come from somebody that they care about.
Right.
And that has a good, close relationship with the child.
Yeah. They also talk about how, so before a bishop is actually installed as the bishop, the congregation, and they say this, the congregation members first vote to sustain his selection.
Well, that's a
Which,
farce.
exactly. The wording implies that if someone votes negatively, that the
Yeah.
bishop isn't going to be the bishop. But that's
Right.
completely not true. You
That's
can
not
raise
true
your
at all.
hand. More than one person can raise their hand.
Yeah.
But they take them aside individually and say, what are your concerns?
Mm-hmm.
And then the bishop is still called as the bishop. It's
Yeah,
not...
unless there is an actual accusation of them doing something criminal.
Right.
Like if for instance, the bishop was accused of molesting a child himself, and then somebody came to the stake president or the general authority that was going to set this bishop as the bishop and said, this is the issue that I have, then they would probably hold off. Like something like that, they probably would hold off.
Maybe, but some of the comments that I read were similar to that situation.
Oh, really?
And the bishop, like, nothing happened to the bishop. The bishop stayed in his position until they could look into the matter.
Oh, I see. Huh.
Yeah. And on certain things, I think, you know, that kind of makes sense. But, like, a child abuse allegation, that needs to be shut down real quickly and investigated without that.
Yeah, even if it's just an allegation,
yeah,
like, that catches wind in the congregation, like, people are going to lose trust in the bishop really fast.
And the bishop has access to kids all the time.
Right.
All the time. I mean, he has one-on-one interviews.
Yeah.
With these children.
It's like, okay, again, going back to my work, a few months ago, we had a girl make an accusation against a male staff, said that he did certain things to her, and that he said certain things to her, okay? And there were other staff present during this situation that she's saying all this stuff happened. And so there was an investigation, and they checked the cameras, they got testimonies from different people that were there or nearby, and just try to find any corroborating evidence to see if there was any. And they involved the police, right? Yeah, they called the police, and there was a private investigator that came in and did his own investigation, independent of the police. Okay, and during all of this, that male staff was not allowed anywhere near that girl. Yeah, not because we thought that he had actually done anything, because there was not a single staff there that believed that this male staff did anything to her. Okay, we knew that this girl was lying. Yeah.
She habitually lied about stuff like that.
Right, and so, but still, even so, we still have to go through the investigation. We have to do the process, but keeping him separate from her was to protect him too from further allegations. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Needless to say, this is not the golden standard. I'm just going to say that right now. If this was the gold standard, they would have background checks on any person being put into a leadership position that dealt with children. Yeah. Which right off the bat. No, it doesn't happen, and there would be consistent education classes. Yep. Leadership would be educated on signs, how to prevent it, you know, how to approach it.
And that's the other things that a lot of other religions, churches, do put their clergy members through that kind of training. Yeah. A lot of, like for instance, the Unitarian Universalist Church, they generally require their pastors or preachers or whatever they call them to go through some kind of counseling training so that they can recognize those kinds of signs. Right. And that kind of stuff. Mormon bishops, Mormon clergy get zero training. All they are given is a 1-800 number to call the lawyers of the church who have a vested interest in protecting the assets of the church.
So in this article, they mentioned that 1-800 number as well, and they do say that that they can receive legal counsel or whatever, how to approach it that way. But it's also, they also said that there are licensed social workers as well, the 1-800 number. But
right.
Yeah, but even that, they're going to be LDS social workers,
right?
And their approach to it is going to be largely on the spiritual side.
Yeah. And again, from the lawyers, from what I understand, their main purpose is to tell you whether or not you have a legal obligation within your state to report.
To report it, right? Exactly.
And again, in Utah, Mormon Utah, not required.
Yeah. So going on again with the bishop thing, they really focus on bishops.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
It kind of makes sense.
It makes sense, but at the same time, like, there are, like, scouts, you know, like...
That's true.
You know, there are a lot of male... Yeah, exactly.
Teachers,
primary especially. But they focus on bishops, which makes me think that this has come from, like, bishops being accused of sexually preying on people. Right. But anyway. Okay, so it says... LDS clergy also have powerful incentives to protect children from abusers within their congregations. All bishops are married, and most have children of their own, often young ones, who attend their respective congregations and participate in their activities. So they're saying that because they have their own kids, they aren't going to sexually prey on someone else.
That has nothing to do with pedophilia.
No, it has nothing.
A sexual predator at all.
Okay, so one of the comments that I did copy, and it was just a really well thought out comment. I'm not going to read it all because it goes over each paragraph individually and comments on what's ridiculous in each one.
Okay.
But specifically in this one, this individual has had a lot of experience working, I think, within the church on cases like this.
Okay.
And so it's a pretty legit source to kind of take some information from.
Does it
But-
have like their name or?
No, it was. It's anonymous.
Okay.
Anyway, so this person cites a study. It's called the Abel and Harlow Child Molestation Prevention Study, and lists off a bunch of statistics that I just want to read because it's interesting. So first off, the percentages are going to be over 100%, and they say it's because predators target more than one category of child.
Okay.
So you can't split it up evenly. Anyway, so 77% of pedophiles were currently or formerly married, 93% were religious, and 79% were Caucasian. The percentages of the children that they targeted were broken down into categories. 40% were children of a friend or neighbor, 30% an adopted, foster, or stepchild of their own, 19% their own biological child, 35% other family-related children, 5% children in their care, and 10% were children of strangers. 10% were from strangers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like like the children that are most susceptible to being abused are the ones that have trust issues. They're the ones that are looking for sort of parental adult figure, okay? And they're looking for somebody close to them that they can trust. Maybe not necessarily a parent, but in a church congregation, you get more than just the parent that they trust, and it's an implicit trust. That's something that I think hasn't really been mentioned a whole lot. Is that this, like when you, for instance, move from one area to another area, and you transfer your Mormon records from one area to the other area, you have this built-in community when you arrive to the new place, and they immediately welcome you with open arms. They give you a calling.
Most of the
people will come by and give you food or offer to help you move stuff, and there is this camaraderie that comes with being a Mormon.
Yeah.
Okay, and kids pick up on that. They know this person goes to my church, this person doesn't. This person goes to my church, therefore I trust them a little bit more because my parents trust them a little bit more.
Right.
And they're more likely to go along with something that adult
Exactly.
tries to get them to do,
And they're just really naive too. Like the church doesn't address things like this with children.
Yeah.
You know,
they don't talk about victimology.
No, and the idea of the family is huge, and I think that contributes a lot to it, especially when it's the father or a mother abusing a child, because you don't want to break up the family, like we kind of touched on. Because breaking up the family means that you're not going to be together in the celestial kingdom, and that is a huge deal to Mormons. Huge.
Yeah. That's why they're so concerned about divorce rates.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I really thought those were intriguing statistics because 93% were religious. Yeah. And 79 were Caucasian.
93% religious is higher than the general population.
Yeah, right. And then the Caucasian is interesting too because Mormons are predominantly white.
Yeah.
And
we were just talking about that the other day, how blonde everybody is in Utah.
Yeah, right. And just that, a lot of them were children of a friend or a neighbor. People are constantly coming and going. Like you mentioned, there's a feeling of camaraderie. There's this huge community. Everyone is essentially a member of a family. Yeah. And then Mormons are really big on adopting children, on fostering children. Yeah. If you get divorced, you want to get married usually right after. And so there's a lot of intermixing of families. And that's a huge statistic on there, 30%. Yeah. Like, all of this, I think, really speaks to the Mormon culture. Yeah. So yeah, we can move on from that.
Okay.
Let's see. They mention, I highlighted this right here. The suggestion that the church instructs members to keep abuse issues solely within the church is false.
Okay.
So they state that blatantly.
Unless you live in Utah where it's not legally required.
Exactly. And I looked, so again, on LDS.org, I was looking for some information, just kind of on like if, just to find out about sexual abuse and what the church's policy and stuff is on that.
Okay.
And in the thing that I found, so it was in True to the Faith, which is a gospel reference book. You're supposed to use it while you're studying the scriptures, basically.
Okay.
So it's not something that's given out basically to every member.
This is more for what, teenagers or?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I didn't have one. I don't even know if it's still used today, but this was in 2004, and I found it in another location more recently, so it's legit. Anyway, basically it said if you've been sexually abused, it says the first thing that this person should do is to talk to a member of the bishopric, to talk to a priesthood leader. And throughout the entire listing of things that you're supposed to do, it was always to go back to your priesthood leader and to, tell him your progress, tell him your issues. Never once does it say talk to a counselor or, get help outside, find legal help. Never once does it say that. And so for them to say that the suggestion that church instructs members to keep abuse issues solely within the church being false, I think that in itself is false, because nowhere in any of the information I found did they say seek legal help.
Right.
Call the police. That should be the first thing.
It blows me away that so many people have a hard time accepting that pedophiles and child molesters should be in prison.
Yeah.
Like, why are we so interested in protecting these people when they're hurting kids?
Yeah.
And there is a distinct, it's a psychological toll. Okay. The most common is probably PTSD. Okay. But that's not the only thing. Okay. You have issues with anxiety. You have self-esteem issues. Self-worth. All these kinds of things creep up when somebody is abused, especially sexually abused.
Yeah.
It's like, why isn't there a more concerted effort to protect the kids from these people?
Yeah. So they also say that the church enforces a too deep policy so that adult males who work with children or youth are never alone with a minor, which is interesting and also not entirely truthful, because you go in for a meeting with the bishop and there's not another person in the room with you, ever. It's only just you and the bishop, or you and the first or second counselor. There's never two people in there. And myself growing up, my Sunday school teachers were almost always male, and there was not always another person in there with us.
Right.
I
think that's a more recent change, and I think it's
so here's the thing. It's mostly with primary kids, which is great.
Yeah.
But teenagers get sexually abused too, It's like it needs to be a widespread thing.
Yeah, and it is a different kind of abuse. Because, little kids don't entirely understand what's going on. Right. They don't know that what they're doing is sexual necessarily. Okay. A teenager generally has a better idea. And when they already have baggage, emotional baggage, it's a lot easier for a predator to manipulate them into agreeing. And then they have this idea that they have given consent and that everything's okay. I keep going back to my experience at work. There was a girl that I worked with a couple of years ago. She was a teenager, 14, 15 years old, something like that. And she was a bright kid, okay? But she was sexually abused. She was manipulated by an older man, probably late 20s, early 30s. And he coerced her to be in a relationship with her. And they ran away together and did all these things. And I remember having a conversation with her where she said that she was so confused. She was so conflicted because she thought that she was adult enough to make that decision to be with this man. And that part of the blame should be on her. It's like, no. You were the victim. He was taking advantage of your vulnerable state and the fact that you have all of these other issues, and he was doing this and this. Like you were victimized. He used you, and he convinced you to go along with it. And because you're a teenager, and lots of teenagers like to think of themselves as more adult than they really are, they get into that trap when they're abused. They think that they are accomplice to it, and that's not the case.
Right.
Especially not legally.
Yeah,
because there's
you're
the
not at
issue
the age of consent.
Yeah, the age of consent. Anyway.
So in the next paragraph, this is where they really try and issue any blame that they might have in any case of sexual or child abuse. So they say, with over 5 million members in the United States alone, the church cannot monitor its members' private lives. The church is not a police force, nor should it be.
Which is why we have police.
Well, and then it continues, there is much they don't know about the lives of their congregation members. But I feel like this isn't entirely truthful either, because, I mean, there are cases where, like, if a person is being vocal on, like, social media or something criticizing the church, they're quickly shut down. People, like, they have people that monitor, like, Facebook and other social medias and blogs so that they can control the information that's being said to their members. So that is, again, it's not entirely truthful. They have ways of being aware of people's lives. They're more involved with their members' lives than they're willing to admit.
Or that the members are even aware of.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of members don't know that they're monitoring things like that until it happens to them.
That one committee, the Strengthening Members Committee or something like that like monitors members' blogs and see if they are doing anti-Mormon stuff, or like I've heard of this group. It's something that comes up periodically on the ex-Mormon Reddit page, the Strengthening Members Committee. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Anyway, but it just goes into the fact that the church monitors what people do. They actually care about what people do within the church and what they're saying to other members.
Exactly.
Very much so.
Yep. So yeah, it's not. I don't know. There just are a lot of half-truths in here that make church members feel really great about their church. But if they dug just a little bit deeper, they'd realize that they're not being told the whole truth.
Yeah. And the thing that bothers me, well, one of the things that bothers me, is that for an actual victim who has been on the receiving end of the flaws in this policy, when they hear this and how this is the best that we can offer, that this is the best that people can do, that minimizes their experience, and it can make, I think, people feel like their experience isn't valued, or that there's something wrong with them. And going back to the girl that I was talking to, like, she felt like she was part of the problem. And when you hear your experience being minimized in this way, that can make you feel that way.
Right. So yeah, then they start getting into the 1-800 line. We don't really need to talk about that since we already talked about it. But just really quick on the whole how state reporting laws are different and how some clergy. And so So state reporting laws vary greatly. A broad majority of states exempt confidential communications with clergy from reporting duties. Why? Because public policymakers have concluded that confidentiality helps victims and perpetrators alike come forward and get help. A confidential confession to a clergy person often breaks the cycle of abuse and is the first step in a process that leads to voluntary reporting by the perpetrator, victim, or others.
It also leads to people minimizing.
Right, and I just don't think that's an accurate thing at all.
No.
Again, all of the comments that I read, people at first felt really guilty about it. They kept it secret for a long time, and then they finally approached a bishop or someone of priesthood authority and talked about it, and nothing was ever done. You open up about it, and in a few cases, the abuser was brought in and talked to, but then they didn't get any consequences. They were still in the same positions, nothing happened, and it was just dropped. So I don't think that inspires people to come and confess.
Right.
And
again,
or to feel safe.
They're talking about confidentiality. Clergy members are not the only people that have confidentiality. Doctors, therapists, teachers, they all have to value confidentiality, but their standards for confidentiality are different from clergy. That's one of the things that really just bugs me about this. The fact that we're making this special case for clergy members,
Mm-hmm.
as if they have this extra special relationship to get information out of people. That
Right.
isn't the case. There have been a number of people that have come out and said, I did this to a kid and I did this to a kid, but they leave out all of these other things.
Exactly.
And they only say the lesser crimes,
Yeah.
and then they get a slap on the wrist just from the church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like,
and the
okay, well,
legal
we're going to
action.
take you out of your position in primary. We're going to put you in as the librarian for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe, after a little while, we might consider putting you back in or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? Just so that you can show us that you've really reformed, and you have to talk to the bishop and show that you've gone through the repentance
Mm-hmm.
process. It's like, well, part of the repentance process should be accepting legal responsibility for your infraction.
Actions. Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's not. I don't think they discuss that in there, do they? Probably not.
About what? Legal actions?
The legal actions being part of the repentance process.
Nope, they don't at all. I'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
We're getting close to the end.
Okay.
But just back to this, public policymakers are the ones that are that have concluded that confidentially helps victims. I think that's kind of interesting too, especially in Utah, since it's one of those states where clergy aren't required to report abuse.
Yeah.
Because public policy in Utah is so heavily influenced by the LDS Church.
Oh,
Like, it is the
absolutely.
LDS Church making that decision.
Yeah.
They just can't get it passed anywhere else,
I'm pretty sure that Arizona has a similar ruling,
I should say that in the majority of states, they can't get that passed.
yeah. But it's a surprisingly high number of states. I think it's double digits that don't require clergy to report.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if they were heavily religious states. Like, are they in the South? Do you remember?
I can't remember. Anyway. So is that it for the statement?
Well, they do mention that the church is one of the only religious organizations that actively disfellowships or excommunicates ordinary members for child abuse.
Well,
But
most-
the problem with that is that quite often they're just reinstated within like 6
Right.
months or a year because they've, as you said, completed the repentance process.
Right.
And that is, like, I think one of the biggest issues of this entire thing is because it is all in-house and it's all focused on this spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
It's you ask God for forgiveness and God will forgive you because we're taught that God is going to forgive you eventually. So if you just wait it out long enough, but that doesn't mean you're reformed.
Right.
And they also focus in some of the things that I found on LDS.org. A lot of it focuses on forgiveness from the person that was abused, forgiving the abuser, and then the abuser getting forgiveness from God.
Well, that is completely unfair.
Yeah, it's unfair, and I don't think it helps the victim actually heal.
No.
Because they have to forgive this person for doing this heinous thing to them,
Yeah.
and then it's like it's supposed to be forgotten, like it never happened. But
Well,
it's
screw
you
that.
can't forget something like that. That
Oh,
has
absolutely.
changed you forever.
Yeah, in ways you don't even realize.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know.
That was awful.
It is awful. And then this I wanted to touch on this. So at the end of that paragraph, it says that their membership record is permanently marked with an annotation that precludes them from ever again associating with the church's children or youth. And again, I think that's a pretty obvious lie as well. Again, because of a lot of the situations that I read, from Reddit and from Mormon stories, a lot of them just got put in different positions, still had access to children, and a few years down the road, they're in a higher leadership position.
Right, but I mean, even if they were taken out of like the primary and the youth programs, they're still a member of the congregation. They
Yeah.
still have access to the
Exactly.
kids.
Kids are still going to come over to the house.
Yeah.
They're still going to participate in ward activities. Like, it's not
Like,
it's
those
not
aren't
going to
the-
happen at church.
Yeah, those aren't the only places where they build trust or where they groom people.
Yeah.
They can do it at ward activities.
So I do kind of have an experience with this kind of.
Okay.
So there was a person in my home ward growing up that we discovered was a sexual offender and was on
Okay.
like we verified it. He's on the list and
The
stuff.
registered list.
But he was allowed to go on the girls' campouts, like the High Adventures,
really?
and yeah. he went on quite a few of them with me.
Oh, wow.
Like, I mean, my impression of the guy was that I think it was probably something that he did while he was younger, probably with a 17-year-old girl. I think that might be what it was, but still, like, you don't know exactly what it was that happened. And so I mean, like, something could have happened.
Right.
You know, you just never know. And it's not made public. Like, we heard a rumor about him being, on the sexual offenders list. It wasn't like, okay, guys, we're putting this man in charge of some of your girls. He was a sexual predator, so be aware. It wasn't like that.
On the down low.
It was years later we discovered this.
Yeah, because again, they want to protect that person.
Exactly.
They don't want to protect the kids.
No. And he had children. Married, had children. He had a girl a couple years younger than me. So it's like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they really make that known. And whether they annotate it or not, it's only available to the bishop. They don't tell the members.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about with this has less to do with the policy itself and more to do with the idea that religion very often can give people easy access to things or easy access to ideas that turn out to be problematic. For this particular topic, a pedophile going to a religious congregation, any congregation, will have access to children. Okay, and the more prominent they can become within the community, the more trust they can gain. It makes the grooming process a lot easier. Okay, for somebody that has that interest in mind. Okay, it has that implicit trust. But that's not the only thing. Okay, there are other things that religion does that gives people bad ideas. They act out on. A couple years ago, there was a family just a few miles south of where we live in Springville, Utah.
Oh, yeah.
Where the parents, young parents, probably about 30 years old, had a couple of kids. They were convinced that the end of the world was coming. And they had all of these, scriptural references. They had all of these, talks from different people. I don't think that they were actually LDS. I think they were just more mainstream Christian. But they were convinced that it was imminent. Okay, and as a result, they killed themselves and their children. I think one of their kids survived. One of the older kids.
He was somewhere else. He wasn't in the house.
Yeah, so he survived it. He didn't get killed with the rest of his siblings. But that's not the only case. Like, there's the Andrea Yates case, who was convinced that God had told her to kill her children. And the reasoning behind it was that her children were still young enough that they wouldn't be held accountable for any sins that they may have committed. Okay, they hadn't reached the age of accountability, which is a big thing in Mormonism. Okay, and when she killed them, she essentially guaranteed that they would go into heaven. They would go straight to heaven.
In her mind.
In her mind. Right. Well, based on her
beliefs,
religious beliefs, right? According to Christianity, when a child dies before the age of accountability, at least in most mainstream Christian groups, they go straight to heaven.
Yep.
Okay, that's what everybody during the Sandy Hook massacre they were saying. All the kids just went straight to heaven. Okay, and in essence, Andrea Yates sacrificed her own salvation to save her 4 little kids. Now, according to Christian beliefs, I've been thinking about this for a few years now, trying to figure out some way in which she could be theologically wrong. She's not.
No.
According to her beliefs, according to Christianity, in most forms that I can think of, she was successful. She successfully sent her kids to heaven and sacrificed her own salvation. Okay? And when she went to court, she pled insanity because that's what her legal advisor told her to do. Or whatever. And
she heard a voice.
Right, she heard a voice. And everybody on the jury who were, from what I recall, were believing Christians themselves, had no problem seeing the insanity plea as a valid excuse. But you extend that to somebody like, say, Abraham, who was told by God to kill his son Isaac, or in the Book of Mormon, Nephi, told by the Holy Spirit to kill Laban. Okay? Like, these are examples within Scripture. These are ideas that get put into people's heads. And religion gives them a valid reason to do these things, you know? And that, I think, is a much deeper issue. It may not be as prevalent as pedophilia, but it sure is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I don't know, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. Do you have anything else on this?
Nope.
Okay. So shifting gears a little bit, but still keeping in Utah and Mormons and all that. Another thing that's problematic, according to a Utah state senator by the name of Todd Wheeler, I think is his name, Weiler. There's a problem in Utah. A problem that is leading to divorces. It's leading to sexual aggression. It's leading to all kinds of problems within the home. Do you know what it is? What is it?
Pornography.
Pornography. Yes. Pornography. We've talked about porn a few times, and we did a whole episode pretty much a few episodes ago. Let's Talk About Sex, that episode, where we talked about porn addiction and how at the very least the scientific community is divided. I think that the scientific community pretty much agrees that pornography is not an addiction, not a legitimate addiction. There's a few fringe groups that are trying to use some pseudoscience and some very biased studies to push a particular agenda. Well, it turns out that this particular senator agrees with that pseudoscience, and he's using that pseudoscience to classify pornography as a public health crisis. Let's see. So I just wanted to read what the Deseret News has to say about this. So the Deseret News is a Mormon publication. We've done a few articles from them. So this is a quote from a person from the Utah Coalition Against Pornography, a person named Jenny Brown. She says, "We are going to give the pornography industry a run for their money, even if it takes several years to keeping working on it." She actually says that. "We are not going to be afraid to look at the pornography industry right in the eye. It's not going to keep just doing what it wants and think there's not going to be pushback."
This is a verbatim quote.
This is verbatim.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
That's terrible.
Right. So this is not a quote from her, this is just the article. Academics, marriage and family therapists, anti-pornography advocates, residents lined up to testify about the ills of exposure to sexually explicit material in a packed Senate Health and Human Services Committee meeting. They said it undermines families, damages relationships, and leads to risky and aggressive sexual behavior. Okay, so they're using that as the basis. Okay, and they're citing a couple different studies. They don't actually give specific studies in this article. They just say there's a whole bunch of studies. But they're saying that it's leading to all of these terrible things. You know, it's undermining families. It's damaging relationships. It leads to risky and aggressive sexual behavior. Okay, we talked about some of those things in the episode where we talked about porn addiction. I pointed out that when Denmark in the late 60s legalized pornography, they saw a huge reduction in sexual aggressive crimes, sexual assault and whatnot. So, and there's been tons of other studies that have shown that when you increase the usage of porn within a population, you get less sexual acting out. You get less rape, less sexual assault. Why? Because they have a sexual outlet.
Yep.
You know?
That isn't hurting anyone.
Exactly. A few other points. Nobody stood up in opposition to this resolution.
Of course not. It's Utah.
It passed unanimously.
It's Utah.
Okay.
Run by the Mormon Church.
Right, exactly. And let's see. Okay, so Wheeler, the senator who's pushing this, said he recognizes pornography is legal for adults, but he ultimately wants to make the internet porn-free unless people opt in to view it. So you have to like actively search it out kind of thing, or like sign up to have access to it. And then, and this was when I mentioned this to you, Corinne, you asked like, okay, well, what does that really mean? Like, what does this resolution mean? What's it going to do? So what it's actually going to do is it's going to give legal recourse, legal reasons to deny parents access to their kids if they view pornography and the other spouse doesn't. Okay, and it should be noted that this Wheeler, this senator, used to be a divorce attorney. Okay, so that's where he's kind of basing this all from. He's saying this is a trend that I saw when I was a divorce attorney in Utah.
Oh my gosh.
And pornography ruins relationships, it leads to divorce, all that kind of stuff.
It's because they're told it's a bad thing.
Exactly. They're told that it's a bad thing, and so they look at it as a bad thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And because of this resolution, there are going to be cases where children are going to go to one parent and not the other parent, simply because one views pornography and the other one doesn't.
It would be interesting if it's the woman that views pornography. Because in Utah, it's almost always the kids just go automatically to the women.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, already, like, the men almost never get the kids already, and men predominantly are the ones that view pornography.
Yeah, it's going to make it even harder for men to
have custody of their kids.
Yeah, any custody.
That's so sad. And viewing pornography does not automatically make you a pedophile.
Nope.
That's a very specific type of pornography that is, in fact, illegal.
Yep. So I have another article on this topic. This is from The Independent, which is a British publication. So this is completely outside of Utah Mormon culture. They start out right off the bat saying that there's lots of health benefits to masturbation, and that they actually provide links to stuff like that, where they talk about it.
Imagine that.
I know. And then, let's see, so they talk about, so the resolution states, whereas pornography use is linked to lessening desire in young men to marry, dissatisfaction in marriage, and infidelity. Okay, so those are some more of the bad things that porn causes, apparently. Legislature and governor must recognize the need for education, prevention, research, and policy change at the community and societal level in order to address the pornography epidemic that is harming the people of our state and nation.
Wait, is this still The Independent?
This is The Independent. They're quoting the actual resolution, like the wording in the resolution. Okay.
Oh, from
Utah. Okay.
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 I was confused. I'm
Sorry.
on the same page now.
Okay. And then, so now this is the Independent commenting.
Okay.
Among 18 to 30-year-olds, 79% of American men and 76% of women watch internet porn at least once per month, according to statistics compiled by a group called Covenant Eyes. And then they also point out that Utah has a higher porn usage than most other states. Mm-hmm. Senator Wheeler also forwarded SB 227, exposure of children to pornography, which means that a district court, this is like a different resolution, I guess, which means that a district court should consider whether the parent has intentionally exposed the child to pornography when determining child custody in a separation or divorce.
So is that one actually passed, or is he trying to get that one passed now?
It doesn't say. It
So that sounds different.
It says he forwarded it.
Okay.
So
I don't think it's passed.
It may not have actually been passed on that one. But this is, let's see. So this article from the Independent is older than the one from the Deseret News. So it may have been passed as well. It's not entirely clear because they're talking about two different resolutions or something that are essentially saying the same kind of thing. But the bottom line is that this is all based on pseudoscience.
Yeah.
It's an area of science where the Mormon Church has heavily influenced the studies done in Utah, and they have a particular agenda. They want it to be bad because that fits within their narrative, and so there's a lot of very biased opinions in Utah. There's a lot of facilities where people get sucked into these rehab clinics to overcome something that isn't even an addiction. You know. Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see what comes from all of that because Utah again has crazy divorce laws. It's really hard for men to get custody.
Yeah, men
already.
are not treated equally in Utah.
Yeah.
When it comes to kids.
Yeah. And this is just going to make it even harder.
Yep, it is.
So, anyway.
I wanted to say something on this. It's not necessarily linked to the article, but just pornography in general. So the church, obviously talks about pornography as being a bad thing. Yeah. And they like to say that, as soon as you view something bad like this, you can never get it out of your head. And it always pops up, and it just leads you down, this path of always wanting to view stuff like that.
Right. It's enticing.
So it's enticing.
Yeah.
But, the thing that I wanted to talk about mostly was that it's just ingrained in your head. And, it's this black spot in your mind. So when I was in the church, and, I would happen upon... I'd never really, saw pictures or anything, but, in stories or whatever, describing a sex scene or something like that. Sure. Or even just a movie where, you kind of have that moment between two characters. Yeah. It's that was always in my head. Yeah. It would randomly pop up, and I would think about it, and I would get really weird feelings inside. Right. Didn't really understand what was going on. And so I believed that. It's oh my gosh, if I view something like that, I'm never going to be able to get out of my head. Yeah, forever. And I'm just a really bad person. But after I let go of that and now I can read stuff like that and it's not an issue. Right. I can view pictures and it's not an issue and it doesn't pop up in my everyday life anymore. Right. I'm not sitting at work and suddenly think, oh my God, a penis. I would literally think about stuff like that. You see an attractive man and you suddenly... And, you have thoughts that it's oh my God, what would that be like? Right. That doesn't happen anymore. Right. Because I can view something like that if I feel like I need to and not feel guilty about it. Exactly. I have a healthy sexual outlet, and it doesn't pop up in my everyday life. So it's just... Exactly. If they could get it out of their heads that it's an inherently bad thing... Yeah. A lot of these problems would go down. The divorce rates would go down because suddenly couples are able to view this stuff together or are able to take care of their needs without needing someone else constantly there by them all the time. Right.
It reminds me because when you talk to somebody who doesn't grow up in a sexually repressed community like the Mormon communities that we have around here, they don't understand what sexual repression does psychologically. Right. I remember listening to a clip from Howard Stern. Do you know who Howard Stern is? Okay. So he's a famous radio host. He's known for talking about explicit material on the air. Oh yeah. And he was talking about this idea of guys getting caught watching pornography. Okay. And he was just why is that a big deal? Why does that even matter? It's this idea that it takes over your mind and you can't think of anything else and just
you can't stop doing it.
You can't stop doing it.
You always want to masturbate.
Right. He's when I get the urge, I just do it and then I move about my day.
Yeah, exactly. And most people do that.
Right. It's not a big deal.
It's the ones that think they're doing a bad thing, but keep wanting to do it. They're the ones that have a problem. Yep. And it's because religion or some kind of institution is telling them that what they're doing is wrong.
Yep. It's the cycle of guilt.
Yeah. Something that you enjoy is wrong.
Yep. And then you feel bad for doing it, but you can't stop doing it.
Yeah, because it feels good.
Yep. And every time you do it, you feel bad, and then you do it again because you feel bad, and then you feel bad for doing it again. And
Yeah.
just on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
It's awful.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
Yay.
I'm getting so much better at that.
You are getting much better.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to contact us, you can email us at skepticsquaredpodcast@gmail.com. You can check out our show's blog at www.skepticsquaredpodcast.blogspot.com. And you can rate us and leave a review on iTunes and subscribe. I don't ever mention that you can subscribe on iTunes. Yeah, that's our show. Thanks for listening.
See you later.
Yay.
Yay.
Here's some banter. Hi, banter.